Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Silicon Minds, Human Hearts. Today we're interviewing Marlene, who's an advocate at Microsoft. Welcome Marlene at Silicon Minds, Human Hearts. Can you please introduce yourself to us?
Yes, hi, my name is Marlene and I am a developer advocate at Microsoft. I only recently joined the company about 7 months ago. I work on the advocacy team that focuses on Python and AI on Azure. That's who I am.
Okay. So what specifically do you do at the advocacy team?
So I would say on the advocacy team, I focus on Python and AI. So half of my job, maybe at the moment, about 60 to 70% of my job is actually writing Python code. So really working on samples or open source code. I've contributed quite a lot to LangChain, for example, and anything that touches Azure that relates to the Python community, I write code for that and try to improve documentation or try to improve the code base so that things are working as expected. I'm also building lots of fun projects. I just mentioned to you earlier about an agentic application I'm working on at the moment. And then the other part of my job as well is more communication stuff. So maybe I'll do a stream and do videos on YouTube about what I'm building, or I'll go and speak at conferences, for example, or sometimes I'll write, not as much these days, but I'm mainly speaking as well.
So. Sounds like an interesting job to do.
Yeah, it is. I really enjoy it.
Now, what I had noticed on your LinkedIn profile is that you worked in the past for the Python Foundation.
Yes.
What did you do there and how was that?
I did work for the PSF. So the Python Software Foundation is the nonprofit organization behind the Python programming language. And it is the goal or the mission of the PSF is to really grow Python around the world and make sure that the community around it is great, it's growing, it's inclusive, it's diverse. And at the time when I was working with the PSF, I was in Zimbabwe, which is where I'm from originally. And at that time, I was trying to help the PSF grow the use of Python on the continent of Africa. I really love Python. I think it's a great language. I think it's really elegant, it's fun, but you can also do really cool things with it, and you can build things that are useful in the real world. And so for me, that was a lot of my work, was really working with the African community. I actually was one of the co-founders of PyCon Africa, which was the first Pan-African Python event on the continent. And it's actually happening soon again, the next version of it. I think it's been now 3 times that we've had the conference, and that's going to be in a couple of days. So yeah, okay. So that's what I was doing with the PSF. It's in Ghana, Accra, Ghana. So,
in Accra, probably.
Yeah, definitely. It is.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, Python has been really hyped up.
Yes.
In the past, statistics and data science is mostly R or SAS. Mm-hmm. And now we see it's most of the time it's purely only Python.
Yes.
But of course, we have Python for software development, but we have also Python for AI.
Yes.
And that's, of course, what we're here want to discuss.
Yeah.
How do you use AI within your day-to-day life?
So for me, I think AI is useful for a number of things. I would say one of the things I particularly use AI for is just to understand concepts. So if I have something that's new that I'm trying to learn, I think AI is great at simplifying something for just an introduction. I think after that, when I'm wanting to do more of a deep dive, I'll even sometimes ask ChatGPT or something like that. I'll ask, can you give me a list of research papers that have been really important in this field? So I was doing some research recently, even on AI agents, and I asked ChatGPT to give me some of the sort of hallmark papers that came out. And that was really useful because I could then just go to the main papers that have made a big impact on the industry. And then I can just do my more research there. But I would say it's great for a starting point. I also use AI sometimes as well. Like recently, I'm trying to get my budgeting under control. I just moved to London, so it's more expensive than I expected. So I'm trying to get better at budgeting. And I recently used AI for that. I was like, can you take this PDF of my bank, this is my bank statement or something like that, and just obviously a clean CSV version of that, and asked it to kind of make a summary of where the main expenses are coming. Can you group things or things like that? And I found that also to be helpful.
It's an interesting way of using it also.
Yeah.
I think it makes me immediately also think about the advertisement of Microsoft during the Super Bowl, where they launched Copilot, which was a very powerful advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that with your family, with your friends, that they start making use of these tools much faster?
I think definitely with my family, probably not. My mom is really online, maybe on Facebook or something, to share stuff with her friends. I don't know. But my mom is not using ChatGPT at the moment. My siblings maybe are. So my brothers, they would be more likely to use, something like ChatGPT, or there's something like Copilot, for example, to one of my brothers works as an analyst, and so he'll use Copilot in his work just to, I don't know, make formulas or things like that. And so I would say maybe my brothers do use it, but it depends. I think there's an age gap range for people who are more comfortable adapting new technology. So.
Yeah. My parents are also not using it. They're too old for those kind of things. But I think education is a very important part in AI. You're also part of it by your work as an advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Any examples of like you really saw people, their eyes being opened after one of your talks?
Yeah, I recently did a talk, actually last week, I just did like a very brief lightning talk here at Microsoft. It was a brief history of AI. And something that I thought was really cool was I talked about how, in 1967, there was a chatbot called Eliza, which was like super basic. And I like demoed that in front of the group, and I showed that this idea of a chatbot was there, years ago. This is like maybe 60 years ago. And, but when we demo it, it's not as great. But now that we have Copilot or these other tools, because the technology has improved so much, we can really see the same ideas kind of being executed in a way that people can really find them useful. And I think that people thought that was really cool because I think a lot of people think AI is quite new, but I think the field itself has really evolved. And then I showed a project that I've been working on, which, I had also referenced an old paper that I had thought about, where people were thinking about the idea of AI agents years ago, but they didn't have the technology to actually implement them. And so I was showing how we can take those old ideas and actually bring them into the present. But because of the large language models and all of the advances we have in tech, now we can build very cool things. So I showed this creative writing agent that's just a marketing tool, and it creates very trendy, helpful marketing blogs for a team, and it'll include products from the company's product store and include the latest trends or things like that. So I showed that, and all the code is open source as well for that. So that was fun.
Like Chatbot Eliza, those guys were the foundation of how NLP works and how we are using it today, but just on a totally different level.
Exactly.
They didn't have the compute that is now available for everyone just in the cloud. So that
you're right.
And that also brings us to the ideas that was the 60s approximately. That's 60s, 40s, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Where are we going to be in next year?
That's a great question. Oh my gosh. I don't know where we're going to be. I think I'm interested in it. Right now, that's what I'm all about at the moment. Agents is something I'm very interested in. And I think that's the future of AI. I think OpenAI just recently released O1, the strawberry model. And that was, a chain of thought model that's really using sort of agentic patterns to try to make AI a little bit more autonomous, a little bit more thoughtful in quotes, about the work it's doing. And I think in a couple of years from now, I see AI being a lot more autonomous. I think it will be able to do more tasks for us in our everyday lives, just in the same way Copilot is doing, but I think even on a higher level, on a more accurate level, I think fewer hallucinations will happen. So I think that's what I see.
You think it's going to take years?
I think it's going to take years for it to get to the stage where we can confidently say, if I'm getting a response from AI, it's accurate, or we can confidently create sort of agentic workflows that work nicely end to end. I think right now there's a lot of checking that you have to do, and there's still a lot of expertise from humans that we have to step in to make sure that things are working correctly. And what I think will take years, a couple more iterations of maybe bigger language models, is just getting that, not maybe perfect, but close to perfect, I would say.
What do you think about the idea of large language models, which is more trained in general, and small language models who are focused on particular points?
I think small language models are interesting, and I think the use cases for them are very cool. I think I've seen some people talking about using them in more hardware devices and things like that, just to improve the experience. And I think for certain use cases, they're great. But I think large language models are helpful for a more general range of use cases, and I would say that those are the ones that I found most useful. I think with small language models, if you have a very specific case, or for example, you want to just use things offline completely, I think they're helpful for those things. So,
by bringing there also the idea of offline, you see some companies are like, I don't want to send things over the net, though it might even be secured and everything. Will we ever have the possibility, maybe you don't know it yet, but that we have those large language models fully on our phone?
I think so. I think we are moving towards a place. I've seen a couple of people showing examples of using, completely offline a large language model on a phone. I think MLX has something which is a different framework, I think, probably for Apple. I don't know, how good it is, but I have seen people playing around with that and demoing it. I do think we are getting to that point, and I can see the use case for it. For example, I come from Zimbabwe, like I mentioned. If I can only imagine being able to take a language model, putting it on a phone that doesn't need any internet access at all, and giving that to someone who doesn't have internet access somewhere. It's like the amount of information available to them, just like, I don't know how many times, 100 times better than what they currently have. And so I could see that happening. I do see that happening sometime soon. But I think we're still a little bit away from that.
I guess then the issue will be that they have the phones that can handle the models, because you might get it on a decent phone, on an expensive, high processor phone, but not on a cheap phone that is a lot of used also in the African countries.
Exactly. I think we are seeing, though, for example, like Microsoft with the new PCs, the AI PCs that we've kind of seen coming out, where more and more hardware is becoming sort of generative AI native, sort of AI native hardware is what we're seeing. And I think if that becomes the trend, typically, even in Africa, I would say that trend trickles down everywhere. And so I think more people will expect sort of LLM native hardware as well. So I think that it might happen faster in places like London, for example. But I think if that happens soon, it means in a couple of years it will also be available in other places.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you be able to give the public about something they need to focus on right now?
With AI?
With AI or anything else that could be related to it?
Yeah. And then I'm talking about something completely different. No.
You can throw it in.
I think I think people should be curious. I think curiosity is one of the best attributes you can have as a human being. I think curiosity is one of the things that's driving us as humanity forward. And I think if you're just curious about what's happening, I think sometimes people feel afraid, but if you just channel those emotions and take it away from fear and maybe putting into curiosity and trying to understand, okay, what's happening with AI right now? Where have we seen something similar in the past happening? The internet wasn't there some time ago, and it completely changed the way we interact as a society, and it's actually helped us as a society quite a lot. And I could see AI making quite a big difference in that similar way. And so I would say for people, really not being afraid. Python is like one of the funnest languages, I would say, to learn. And so if you haven't learned Python, trying to learn a little bit of Python, that will enable you to build very cool projects with AI. And and I think there's so much, we're so early, I think, in the movement, that it's a great time to be curious.
So we need to be toddlers again, asking.
We need to be toddlers. So we need to, exactly. We
keep
need
on
to be
asking why. And now it's so easy. We can just ask Copilot or the GPT, like, why is that?
Exactly.
And that makes us actually smarter also, and it will increase where we're going to be in the next couple of years.
Exactly.
Imagine as a small child, you can already explain how a GPT works.
Yeah.
So what is that going to be when he's an adult?
Exactly. I completely agree. Yeah.
Marlene, thank you very much for this conversation. It was an interesting one.
Yes.
And hope to meet you another time.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.